All right, so here's my melon. It's open. And I'm going to first off just zoom in a little bit. So I'm holding down my Alt key while doing my scroll wheel. And there's all these pieces of fruit, and we're going to put them on top of that melon in order to make them into a melon head using the different kinds of selection tools that are available to us. Step one, always duplicate your background layer. So to duplicate your background layer, you can do that one of two ways. You can either right click on your background and you can say duplicate the layer, or you can drag it from the background to that new layer button that is down beside the garbage can, and that will actually duplicate it for you. The reason we do that is because if you mess up on the background, which you will, then you can get things back. So I'm going to zoom in first on the blueberry. You can see it's kind of pixelated when I zoom in, but that's okay. What am I using right now to move that around? Space bar, right? So holding the space bar changes that to a grabber hand so I can move in and get onto that blueberry. I'm going to use the circle or the ellipse tool for actually selecting that because it is a circle. Now when I start to draw, I will be drawing an oval, but if I hold down my shift key, it'll make it into a perfect circle. When I draw and I make it into a circle, if it's not in the right position, so I can get it kind of close, but if it wasn't in the right position while still holding down that shift key, if I hold down my space bar, I can actually move that circle around where I need it to go. So I'm not really cutting anything out yet. I'm just moving my ellipse as to what I want to use. So I'm just going to get it a little bit smaller here so I don't get any white of that blueberry around the edge. When I have got it selected, it's important that I let go of my mouse first, not my shift key, because if I let go of shift, it's going to turn back into an oval. So I let go of my mouse first, and now I've got my blueberry selected in a circle. I'm going to jump that blueberry to its own layer by using the Control J. So that is the copy paste in one step. You can see that I have a layer now, and that is my blueberry layer. I'm going to name it and call it blueberry, just so I know. That blueberry, I'm going to have to move and put it on top of my carrot to make an eyeball, but I'm going to select my carrot first. So I'm going to do the same thing on my carrot. Now, if you notice, I'm still sitting on this blueberry layer that's over here. There is no carrot on that layer. That layer only contains a blueberry. So if I try and select a carrot now when I'm sitting on that layer, it's not going to do it. There is no carrot. I have to make sure that I go back to this background copy layer. That's where the carrot exists. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing on my carrot. I'm going to use that circular ellipse tool again, space bar to move it into position. Maybe I'll make it a teeny bit bigger. Shift keeps it a perfect circle. When it's ready, let go of my mouse first, and now jump it to its own layer by pressing Control J. And so now I have a carrot layer. It is right here. I'll zoom back out a little bit. I want to take my blueberry and move it on top of my carrot. So I'm going to use my Move tool, grabbing it, move it on top of my carrot. Now I want to take both the blueberry and the carrot together. So blueberry layer, so I'm over here now. I need to select both my blueberry and my carrot together. I can do that by clicking blueberry, holding down the Control key, and clicking the carrot layer. They're now both selected. I'm still on my Move tool right here. So I can take that now and I can move it. And you see I'm moving those two things together. I'll zoom out and I'll build that up. Now I need a second one of those. I could just jump those two layers that I've got right there and it would create two more. Or there's another shortcut. If you have something selected and you want to make a copy of it, if you hold down your Alt key and grab it, I will make a copy of it. So there's my two eyes made just like that. Okay, so I'm going to show you the difference between the Polygon lasso and just the lasso and the magnetic lasso. So the Lasso tool is this one here that is on the left-hand side. The Lasso tool is a free form type of a selection tool. So a Lasso tool, I would have to very carefully, let me go back to my background copy. I'm going to very carefully, I'd have to go up through here and I'd have to trace around and I'd have to grab what I want. Now I make that look pretty easy because I've got, 20 plus years of experience selecting things on Photoshop. So it makes it look pretty easy to do. I'm going to Control D for deselect That's the lasso tool. The polygonal lasso tool is when you want to make straight lines. So for instance, this straight line at the bottom, I don't have to trace from here all the way to here. I can just click once at the one corner and I can click at the next corner, and that gives me that polygon starting. But you see it, you know, it's square, right? Like wherever I click, it makes a perfect straight line. I'll deselect that, Control D. I got to double click it first to make it select. And then we have what's called the magnetic lasso tool. The magnetic lasso tool, what it does is it works on differences of colors when you've got contrast. And in this case, I've got quite a lot of contrast between the orange part of the grapefruit and then that pithy white part of the grapefruit. So because there's quite a bit of contrast there, the magnetic lasso tool will do a pretty good job of selecting. And literally what you do is you click where you want to start, and then you just kind of follow it with your mouse, and it's laying points down as it needs to. Now, if I want to force a point, like let's say I wanted that little point right in there to be forced, or I want to come down in, you can click to force a point. So if I wanted a little piece here to be kind of a little dip into it, I could force that point. And like here, I might have to force this a little bit. So I can force that just by clicking. But generally what it's going to do is it's just going to magnetic onto it. Now, when you come back to the beginning, you have to make sure you get that little circle in order to close the shape. So you can see that right beside my mouse, there's no circle, but when I come back up, there's a little tiny circle there. That's when it's going to close it. And that's important to get that selection. And then I would jump that to its new layer. And now I have my, I'm going to call this ear instead of calling it grapefruit because it's easier to spell the word ear. I'm going to move my ear. So I'll go to my move tool. I'm going to take my ear, I'm going to move it over, and then I have to rotate that ear. And so the rotate, there's a few different ways of doing it. I can go up into image and I can say, no, I can go into edit, sorry. And I can go to edit, transform, and there's a rotate tool there. But you know me, I like shortcuts. I don't use those menus very often. Control T is transform. And when you do a transform and you bring your mouse, let's zoom in here so you can see me. When I bring my mouse outside of it, notice it changes into that rotation tool. And so then I can click and rotate to rotate my ear. Now, if I want to rotate on precise angles, again, if you hold shift, it will rotate you and snap you every 15 degrees. So it started kind of down here. I would snap, snap. You can see it's snapping every 15 degrees. So if you do want something to be completely rotated exactly, say 90 degrees, you can hold down your shift key in order to do that. When I let go and I come back inside, I can still move it however I want to when I bring my mouse inside of it. So if I wanted to put my ear there. Need a second ear? So I could grab that ear. After I transform it, I could rotate that one by coming outside of it, rotating it around so that I have my second ear. To finish that rotation, you have to either hit the check mark that you see at the top when you're in a transform tool, or you have to hit the enter key, and that will give you that transformation. All right, so for the bow tie, I'm going to start by using my lasso tool so I can do freehand, but then I'm going to switch to my Polygon lasso tool when I go to those little zigzag edges on that bow tie. So to start with my lasso, I'm just going to drag with my mouse as carefully as I can. Try and do a decent job. But then when I come up here, I'm not letting go of my mouse. Okay, I'm going to press my Alt key first. Now I'm going to let go of my mouse. And notice what it's done is it has switched to the polygon. Click, click, click at each point. You can see I click at each point to make my little zigzags. And then down here, I'm going to click and hold my mouse. So I'm going to hold my mouse. I let go of my Alt key, and now I'm back into that Polygon tool again to come around. Don't let go of mouse. Hold my Alt key. Click, 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 click. And I click all the way through those again to make them into zigzags. And then I bring it up here to close it. Let go of my Alt key, and I have a closed bow tie. Control J for jump. I would help if I'm on my background copy. Control J for jump. This is my bow tie, so I will label that. I'll zoom back out. I will grab my bow tie and move it into position on top of my melon and save my document again. Those radishes that are sitting here, we could try and magnetic around those things because we do have lots of contrast with our white, but that would still take a lot of time. And instead what we can do is we can use a selection tool and then say, well, I don't want parts of it. So what I'm going to do here, if you watch me, I'm kind of cheating in this sense. I'm drawing a rectangle around the whole piece of radishes, including the white. Now, what I want are the radishes. What I don't want is the white. So the magic wand tool is meant for selecting types of colors. And when I go into the magic wand tool, which I believe is hiding inside this one, the magic wand tool works on this tolerance level here at the top. And so your tolerance level is picking shades of color. By default, it's set for 32. So whatever color I click on, if it was set at 32 right now, it would pick up 32 shades or tints of that color. So if I clicked on, say, a red, it would grab 32 different shades of red, kind of approaching those light reds and then those dark maroon colors. I'm on a tolerance of 100, meaning that if I click a pixel that is white, it's going to pick 100 white pixels. Now, the other thing that you need to worry about is this little box here that says contiguous. Contiguous means that those pixels have to be touching, okay? So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to use my magic wand to say that I don't want the white pixels, but I want to make sure that it doesn't grab any of these white pixels that are kind of inside the radishes themselves, or these white pixels that are inside the leaves that are kind of almost white, but kind of a little green color. There's two keys that work as a plus and a minus key. So the shift key is a plus key. It means if I want to add into the selection and I hold down my shift key, I could then add into anything that I've got selected. The alt key is a minus key. So if I hold down my alt key, you're going to notice my mouse is going to change, and it changes and it's got a little magic wand minus on it. So now if I click on any of these white pixels that are around the edge of that rectangle, it's going to minus them or subtract them from the selection. So as soon as I click minus, done. It has grabbed my radishes and it's done a good job. Now, notice how, just like I had said, it grabbed and it's subtracted these ones that were inside, and that was because I did not have contiguous touched. So it grabs them that are inside of it. So let me undo that. If I click contiguous, now my white pixels have to be touching each other. So it won't grab these white ones that are inside anymore. I'll hold down Alt, I'll click a white pixel on the outside edge, and now I've got a great selection. So I can jump that, I can zoom out, I can move it over onto my eyebrow, I can hold my Alt and make a second copy of it, and then I can flip that by going to Edit, Transform, Flip Horizontal, and I've got a second one that I can put in there. So you can go ahead and do that and save your file again. One couple other tools that I'm going to show you for selecting then are under this particular magic wand is also hiding this quick selection tool. What the quick selection tool does is it lets you just drag over top of an object and it tries to grab it. So you can see it does a pretty good job of grabbing that pear, or if I just drag over top. It won't do as good of a job when you've got maybe some different colors. You have to take your mouse and just drag a little bit further into it. You can see how it works to drag into these sections, but it is pretty darn fast. So you can use that as a tool. And then the last tool that I want to show you is a new tool in Photoshop that has just totally changed the way that we select objects. And that is called this object selection tool. And the object selection tool, literally you can drag across something and it will do its artificial intelligence to try and figure out what it is you want. And so if I wanted that pair, I could just literally grab that pair on there, and it would do it for me. You can see here's the selection for the bow tie, here's the selection, and it does a pretty good job on those different pieces that you want. So if I wanted to have just the pair, I could hover over it. When it turns blue, I go to just the pair. I would jump that, and then I could move that over onto my melon nose. I'm going to do the same thing with my object selection tool. I'll go back to my background copy, and I'm going to grab my object select and get my mushroom. And there's my mushroom. I will jump that one. I will move it, and I can place that as a hat. So you can see how fast it is with that new tool. It's not perfect. Sometimes you still have to use a refinement tool, like take your lasso and add in some pixels by holding Shift, or subtract some pixels out by holding Alt, but it's pretty darn good.